It is that time of the year where we move away from ball games and towards making the next version of your Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome in. It is Sunday Night Live, a little later than normal, but welcome back, everybody. I'm excited because this week starts this serious contention about how this team builds itself back for another run at that three-peat. I'm very excited. I hope that you are too. Welcome in. Dan is off doing the dad thing tonight, so we're going to sit down and talk for a bit. I'm going to take some of your questions, and we're going to have a good time as we get ready for the NFL Combine. I'm going to have guys to watch out coming here by Tuesday so that you can have something over on NFL33.com to really take a guide at, because there's a lot of aspects that could be really, really good, and the Chiefs need to get in on part of that. So welcome in, everybody. Nice to see Terry. Patrick, nice to see you guys. I know this is a little bit off timing, but wanted to see who and what was around on a Sunday night when we've been doing sports all day. And my mind's been on Kansas City and what's about to happen in building the next version of the Chiefs. Thundarius, hope you're doing well, buddy. Hey, everybody, welcome in. We're going to be just letting everybody kind of gather here. What's up, Kurt? Dan is doing the dad thing. If he can join later, I think he'll try, Isaac, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to make it. So we're just going to go over where we start right now. Nice to see you guys. Cato, Battlecat, nice to see y'all. Mac, awesome. This is where the real fans get going, because a lot of folks, we're not going to have a huge crowd in here tonight, right? Because it's Sunday night in the off season. But this is where next season gets built. And these are the conversations that really go in. So nice to see you guys. Terry, nice to see you, buddy. Appreciate you. Will, as always. Thundarius, nice to see you, buddy. The rally video was great, and I got it out there, and I'll try to do that again tonight, buddy. It's unique perspective. I do like the studio vibe you've got going as well. So really happy to see you off and running with it, dude. Congrats. Zeus, nice to see you. Combine time. And it takes it back to because the Chiefs are what they are. And because they've been able to do this back-to-back thing that is just crazy. It's so rare. It's been 20 years since the last time it happened. And now they have to stare it right in the face and say, well, what can we do to run it back again? And that's where I think it's not about changing something. It's not about having to replace guys. Yes, some dudes will be replaced. There will be positions that change. I do think we can see some of that coming. Obviously, if you missed it the other night, we talked long about the free agents and what are the priorities and how that is all going to come together. And I do believe that things are now. So progress, yes. If it's going to be an answer, we're going to find out. I see there's some questions, folks. If you want your question on tonight, make sure you like and sub and hit the bell. Hit some question marks in your question. Every super chat gets an answer. So if you want to help the channel out tonight, feel free. I definitely will answer you. And we're going to get here to a bunch of your comments and questions as well. But the foundation is set. I know Kellis is 34, and I know that he's, was in Australia a couple days ago. I guess he's back in Vegas or whatever, meeting with the team. And obviously, it's Mahomes, and it's going to be. But it's about servicing those two guys more than anything. We know that there's a question right now about probably the guy that is the third pillar, and that is Chris Jones. When you talk about who stood up and spoke before the Super Bowl to the team in the hotel when it was just them, it was those three guys. Chris Jones is that other pillar. But because of the questions surrounding him, you got to take a step back. And knowing that defensive tackles in this league are hard to replace, there's not as much talent at that position. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. So how do you do that? You take the foundation you have and you continue to strengthen it. And in Kelsey's case, given that his age, that means supplementing him on reps. We saw him play less snaps this year than he did the year before. I can pull up the actual stats because I swear I had it 5 minutes ago and now it's gone. But that's okay. I don't think that is anything earth-shattering to think that, hey, a guy at his age needs to play a few less snaps. It's also about not just supplementing him, but getting ready for the future. Because there will come a time when Travis is like, hey, me and Taylor are going to ride off into the sunset. Love y'all, but we got things to do, and that's okay. I'm not ready for it personally. So when I say that's okay, I'm not asking for that. I'm a ways off. But in the meantime, You got to get some talent at the position behind him. And I like what Noah Gray does. Jody Fortson, I've hoped and hoped and hoped for. And I just don't know if Jody's going to ever be able to stay healthy long enough to make an impact on the team. When he is live, he does make some plays, but he's never been able to put together enough of it to get it done. So it's just that question. It's nothing else against Jody. It's just about the fact that, hey, we need you to give a whole season. And honestly, at his age now, he's pushing 28. I think it's really interesting that Travis has been traveling around with Ross Travis, another former Chiefs tight end. Obviously, they're pals. So you want to grow the tight end room. You want to help the quarterback, obviously, with the weapons. And that's where it comes down to the title of this stream. It's about speed. If you had to pick one thing about what the secondary has done in being able to not only come together, as a rookie five, but now to grow, it's about speed. It's about having either the flat out speed or the recovery speed, which I think no one shows more than Trent McDuffie, because he isn't a guy that never gets beat. He gets beat off the press at times. He beat off the snap, especially when he has to play off. And then he has to go recover, and he has the speed to do that. He can turn it on. And those jets are unique, and you have to have those if you're not a flat-out burner. Now, there's some speed coming up in this class. A guy that is falling down the charts a little bit, and I do think Dan and I have talked about him being available at the end of the first, is Xavier Worthy. I don't know. I don't want to predict his time, but he's going to burn. It is going to be fast, and I think that there's plenty of room there to move around at the later edge of that round and get things done. Miss Holly, Miss Brenda, thank you very much for being here. Battle Cat, nice to see you. I am stacking your questions, you guys, and we'll get to them here in just a couple of minutes. But it's about adding speed on the offensive side. That includes behind Pacheco. So I think that there is a possibility for a change of pace back, a guy with flat out bend the corner, hit it like a jet speed to be added to this backfield as well. Jet McKinnon, he's already got the nickname, but he is quick. Obviously, Clyde has been speed has not been what's based his game on. I do think Clyde will likely depart this roster. And so what are you going to add back? It is about catching the ball and making sure that you have the speed to hurt the defenses that are going to try to adjust right now by all the power that they ran this last year is come back a little bit. They're going to try to stack the box a little bit more. They're going to say, we're going to play 3 deep. We're going to put an extra safety in the box, and we're going to try to take that run that now all of a sudden the Chiefs have been able to pull off, right? That's the next evolution, the next step. And so how do you beat that? You get to the corners with speed out of the backfield. You hit the slants and the digs and those things that allow your speed to come through. Now, digs are always a little bit tough because if you run them correctly, you're gonna have a lag there. If you run them on a round, you're gonna get safety jumping you all the time. So there are some things that have to be straightened out, but speed kills. And that's the thing on offense that they need right now, is that the receiver and even at the tight end spot knows great and he knows where to be. Blake doesn't offer a whole lot of that. And honestly, I think looking forward, you need to get a little bit more speed at the tight end spot, especially if you're going to leave Travis split out with the wide receivers. So that is something else that I think you have to look a little bit more on the lean side, a little bit more on the pass catching tight end side. There's not a ton of depth in this group. There's a couple that I really like. A guy that is a shifted wide receiver is going to run at the combine this week. I'm going to give you live reaction to him, or at least reaction that night. So look for the tight end group. He's from a smaller school out west. And I think you guys will like him when you see him. I'm excited to see what he does. And he'll be one of the guys that I break down for who's coming to the combine here coming up on NFL33.com. So check that out. Okay. That said, that foundation is what will help if you add speed to it to really give this a two-headed monster look for the offense next year that keeps the defenses just that much farther behind. So we are going to get to it here. That's my gist. But again, like, sub, hit the bell. If you want to join the memberships, you get all the extras, including, when something goes haywire, you'll have my real world, real language response on there. We're going to start with Joseph. Thanks for our first super chat tonight. Appreciate you. Can Casey draft and convert Johnny Wilson to tight end? exactly what I'm talking about here. And I know, folks, there were questions stacked before Joseph's here, but it just led exactly to where I'm going. Johnny Wilson is one of the guys that I think is convertible in that way. I don't think that he's going to put on a ton of weight, but he can still chip away. He can still make small blocks and be the guy on the edge that can use body positioning to make a block, and then yet still be that pass catcher with speed that does his thing. I think it's an excellent complement to what Travis does. And honestly, he's one of the few guys that I've seen in this class that might actually be able to mimic some of the things that Travis does that are so Travis, nobody else can do them, including the other greats like Gronk and etc. Now, he's not the guy that I was talking about a little bit earlier, Joseph, so there'll be more coming, but thank you for pointing that out. And he is one of the guys that, our asterisk on my watch list as we get ready for not only the combine, but as we're going through all the film as well. Excuse me, guys. It's been a day shouting in the gym, so I get a little bit here. So let's get to your questions, and we'll roll with it. Thank you for the great work, Ryan. Thank you, Terry. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being a member. Always appreciate you, and thanks for saying that. Isaac, thank you. I know Dan's wish list guy is Worthy. How about yours? I like Worthy, and I do think, again, he lends that speed. Now, I do still feel right now, as it stands, I'm not ready to say there's anything said on the offensive tackle position. I think there's several possibilities. They could re-sign a veteran. I'm not sure if it's going to be Donovan Smith, but they might decide to go that way. They could flip Jawan Taylor to left and draft a right tackle. There's a ton of right tackles in this draft, and you could get a right tackle in the second round, which would let you go after your wide receiver need first. Or you can try to draft a left tackle, of which I think there's only 3 or 4 right now that are first round worthy. And you might even have to go up to get him, in which case that means Wanya becomes the swing until he grows into the role that I think he can eventually man. So that's the question. So it comes to me that if that's what they do and they stay at the left tackle in the first, which right now, in terms of protecting the quarterback, I think that is the most dire need, and they have to straighten that out. If you can't go, I think Worthy will be gone by the Chiefs' second pick. So what I would say is I start looking at guys that might still be there. And the guy that pops to me that I think can fit in this offense, can do all the things that he needs to do, and can be a complement to Rashee Rice is Jalen Polt. I think he's got a little bit more speed than Rice. I don't expect him to test out super faster than Rice, but he's got the wiggle, and he tracks the ball over his head like a beast. And that's one of the traits in particular that this season I'm really trying to look for is how do they track the ball? Would I love to go get Rome Odunze, put him at X and close my eyes and not worry about it for the next 10 years? I would. That's going to take a lot of draft capital to go do. So the next best thing is the guy that plays next to him in a similar role to what Rashee already does, and allow Rashee to go out to the X and do what he does and take his next step forward. So I see Jalen Polk as the guy that I would target in the second. Now, I think he's going to run decently, like I said, and I do think he's going to get pumped up a little bit. So I'm not sure 64 is a viable pick for him. He's, in my opinion, likely to go in the 50s. So that would take a little bit of working around, is my thought. Thanks, Isaac. I appreciate you. Let's see. Davis, let's go after that 3P. Yes, I think that's a good plan. I think that's exactly what they're planning to do, and I'm looking for it. You see Chris Jones wants Odell in KC. I heard that. I haven't actually seen it. Somebody actually told me today while I was out at our event. I find that really interesting because I thought it could have been a decent match before. Quite frankly, I don't think Odell was as healthy as I thought he was. So it makes sense why the Chiefs didn't pull the trigger on that or really go after it in a wholehearted kind of way. But I like the fact that Chris is thinking about wanting him on the Chiefs, because that means Chris expects that. It's one thing to want to remain on your team. It's another thing that you actually expect it. And I think with all the back and forth last year and all the stuff about his agents, and I'm not trying to run down his agents currently, I'm just trying to tell you what I really think in order is best for Chris and best for the organization. One way or the other, Chris wants to be here. And I think that's also something that says that when he's talking about bringing in Odell. I also think Chris knows that. So I think he knows that he wants to stay on the right side of history. And if he does move on, he wants to be able to say, I was for the Chiefs until I wasn't a Chief. So that makes sense. Isaac, who are some guys you'll be watching? We should be watching next week. Clearly, the tackle class. I really want to see what Patrick Paul does, the Utah kid. I thought he had an up and down Senior Bowl, but showed the athleticism, the overall ability to move that the Chiefs and Andy Heck in particular have always liked. They took a risk back in the day on Fish, and Paul is like Fish to me. His lower body is smooth. It's athletic. He doesn't have the girth up top. He doesn't have the power right now, in my opinion, but something he can grow into. So he's one guy that I want to watch. I want to watch all the second guys, the Blake Fishers from Notre Dame, the second tackle from BYU. You know, Andy's got a BYU thing too. I want to watch all that. And my always comes back to edge rushers. At the end of the day, whatever round you're in, whatever pick you're with, if you don't have a guy that is worth the grade that you have, the best value you're going to get is edge rusher, because it's more likely that you're going to hit on that than a corner for most teams. Although Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo have turned this team into, hey, you can pick a corner and we'll build them up. But I'm going to be watching the edges. In particular, the guy that I think might fall a little bit is Latu. I think he's the best technical pass rusher in this class, and I don't think it's very close. He doesn't bring a lot of volume to the hits. He doesn't weigh that much. I don't know that he can put a whole lot more weight on. He obviously has an injury history, but I want to see him in comparison to everyone else, because I think some eyes are going to be opened there. So I'm looking forward to that. And then on the wide receiver side, obviously I need to see everybody. I'm really interested in Thomas. Worthy is going to burn it up, I think. Ladd McConkey, when it comes to like lateral agility, is what I'm looking for as well. And some of those guys I'm going to run down here over on NFL33.com to this week. So make sure you go sub over there if you want to get into it. It is into the height of the draft season, so you do have to go pick up a subscription for that. It'll be fun. There's an RGR member discount over there on NFL 33. So go get signed up if you're interested in the draft process. DC, thank you, sir. Combine and Arnold Classic next weekend. That's a nice combination, the Arnold Classic, right? Going to be online all weekend. Also, wife will be out of town, so I'll have plenty of time to waste. Well done, well done, well done. Hey, it's stuff to see. And again, the tight ends, the receivers, don't forget the DBs, because the situation with L'Jarius, the injury to Cook, Mike Edwards is a free agent again. There's likely to be a DB picked up in this draft that is going to be the insurance policy. So keep an eye on them too. A lot of folks are like, oh, I don't need to watch the DBs for the Chiefs. And I'm like, well, you still probably want to take a look. You never know. If anything else, they feel that that's a well that they can go back to. Greg, Wanya starting left tackle next year, and that's the big question. I thought he showed flashes. I thought that he definitely showed a path to growth to that point. I'm just not sure if they feel he's ready yet. He was put in there for injury. They've generally been okay saying, you know what, Patrick's mobile. We're going to take a tackle that might not be all world. We're going to let him grow into the role, learn the offense, and we're going to be okay. That's what they did with Donovan Smith this year. It's what they've done in the past in trying to patch it all together. I'm just not sure if they're ready to do that again. It feels like they want a little bit more permanency. I could be wrong. But I do believe that tackle was their goal last year, and they weren't able to get that done in the first round. So I do think that they're going to be looking very hard at it this year. And I love Wanya as an eventual move inside to guard as well. So that's a possibility. Joe Tooney is 34, and while I don't think he had a huge fall off with the injury and his age, you're going to see they have to have a backup plan for him as well. And I hope Nick Allegretti is back. So I hope he's part of that. DC with another one. Thoughts on Keon Coleman? What draft range do you project him pre-combine? I'm a little questioning it. He feels right now like DK Metcalf to me. I'm not sure he's going to run the agilities because I'm not sure he's going to perform very well at them. So for me, Keon Coleman's a day two guy no matter what. I do not see him as a first rounder at all. I actually feel like he could fall to the Chiefs at 64. I would not be surprised with that. I have several guys that have leapfrogged him since the beginning. First time I ranked everything was at the beginning of the season. Excuse me. And numbers of guys have passed him, but I do think that he's still a worthy prospect. I'm just not sure if he does enough to fit in, if he's versatile enough to play 3 positions for Andy Reid and learn all the positions. That's going to be the question. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, DC. Bradley, hope you're doing well. Is it really the best time for the Chiefs long term to sign Chris Jones versus a tag and trade? Do we win last 2 Super Bowls without the haul from Tyreek? No, you definitely don't. But as much as I see the similarities, Chris and Tyreek are different situations because of their uniqueness. It is harder to get an elite defensive pass rushing tackle than it is to get a wide receiver that's elite. And Tyreek totally is. And it has been a wealth. The question is, at his age, are you going to get as much trade compensation? And does it make it worth it? I think a tag and trade is a possibility. I think a tag and force a long-term signature is also. I think a tag and just let him play on it is a possibility too, but that puts a big bind on trying to keep L'Jarius Sneed, which I think they should want to. I'm just not sure where they feel the market is for him versus what they'll have to pay. I think they breathed a sigh of relief when he didn't get selected for the All-Pro because I think that matters. So we'll see if they get a chance. But it's definitely a question. When you say long-term, like I'm not signing Chris Jones for more than 3 years. So I don't see that as a huge risk. Like if it was pushing 4 or 5, I wouldn't do it. But I think he's got at least 2 seasons in him. He's being not at his peak. I do think his peak was last season, but he's right up there. So it's very much harder to replace him than it is to replace a wide receiver, as we've seen, because they haven't done it yet and they still just won a bowl. So let's roll with it. Terry, what players do you see us restructuring this offseason? I think Patrick for sure. Kels just had one, so I'm not sure that they're in a position to do that. But let me take a look here real quick at where they are in the cap. And I can actually, we can do this together so you guys can keep me honest. Because anytime you're working with the cap, it becomes a challenge. I want to be absolutely real with you. It's never easy. So, and I'm just going to use Spot Track tonight because we've used over the cap in the past. I just want to make sure that we're doing everything. And right now, this is always fun to look at. Chiefs are right at about league average with 28 million available. So when you look at who you could restructure, you could get 7.5 out of Joe Tooney. I think that's worth pursuing. I know it's not the hugest amount, but I do think it's worth pursuing. Overall, his cap number is 26. So there's room to maneuver in there. And now I didn't even realize looking at this that he is now second. Travis had a restructure, so I'm not sure you can get a whole lot more out of it. He does have that 12 million base salary, so you possibly could, but Patrick's going to be the big one. And I know that they're working on it. That base salary, actually, I lied, is probably stuck there. So looking at Patrick, Joe's been restructured, I believe, at least once. They could probably do that with an extension. I believe they should just extend Justin Reed. So you'll be able to reduce his salary, but it's not a true restructure. It would be like an actual contract extension here. His cap hit is 14 this year. I think you can get that down to 8, maybe even lower. And so get yourself 6 back that way as well. I looked at Juwan's contract and there just isn't a whole lot, that they were able to do with it. If we look at it real quick, we'll use this tool. And I do want to caution everyone. Every tool is a little bit of a question mark, right? If they do that, looks like they can get, according to this, they can get 12 out of Juwan's if they did a restructure. Joe's, they can get 19. So that's what I'm thinking. In particular, along with Patrick, you could get a lot done. That's where I would be looking. Thank you, Terry. David, are there other players on the roster that can generate more draft picks by trading other than Chris Jones? That's the tough one. I mean, you don't want to give away your best, right? If they were unhappy with Juwan, which I don't think that they are, they might try to do that because a tackle at 27 is still worth something. When you're getting Harrison Butker at 29, MVS is a cut candidate. I don't think he can get you anything in trade. It's possible, but he is 30 now. Same thing with Kadarius Toney. You don't save anything by cutting him. So would you try to get something for him? Possibly. I don't think that that's going to happen either because I think he's played his way off of 2 rosters or talked his way off of 2 rosters at this point. I don't know. It's just hard to see anybody right now that I feel that they can both part with and is worth something to in return to get draft capital for. If you're just trying to unload or if you're trying to sweeten a draft pick trade, you could do that with a player. I do think that is a possibility. So we will take a look at that coming up. Thank you, though, David. Great question. Tony, which speedy receiver should we draft this year? I would sign Calvin Ridley or Tyler Lockett in free agency. I totally agree. We need speedy people on offense. Worthy's the number 1. Ladd McConkey's number 2. I'm not like I like what Roman Wilson does, but I'm not sure that he can hold up forever. Let me see. Can I show that yet? I don't think our grades are solid enough to really put them out yet. It's an ongoing battle. Dan and I are working away on the grades. So is our guy EJ. You've seen him before. Hopefully we can get him on content this year as well. But as soon as I can share those, I will, and we'll have a look at it. But I think Thomas, the second receiver in LSU, and I hate to put it that way, but when you play behind or next to Malik Neighbors, that's the way it is. Has more speed than I think most people give him credit for. I think Jalen McMillan does. Ladd. I know people love Leggett. He's more of a build-up speed guy from the film that I've seen, and I haven't done a ton on him, but I don't see him as a true over-the-top deep threat myself. But there are also guys that are going to run better because I might have him as a 4.48 guy or a 4.54 guy, and maybe I just don't know. Maybe they've been training and they can actually run something way hotter than that. And if that's the case, then that's what this week is going to give us. Sean, can Sky bulk up a bit and learn to pick up blitzes and take McKinnon's spot? I mean, you could ask him to. I'm not sure that that's truly in the cards, but he is good with the ball in his hands. It's just understanding the pass protection from back there. I'm not sure that that's something that he's willing or capable of doing. I think you got to get the most of him at his position to make it worth it. That's kind of where I sit right now. Julian, nice to see you, buddy. I like Marshawn Lloyd, the running back from USC. I agree. And Thomas from LSU. How about you? I agree. I thought Lloyd was the best running back at the Senior Bowl while we were there. I do think he's a day 3 guy that will be available. I think that's possible for them to do. I like that. I also like the kid that stood out. I think it's New Hampshire. Lob. Liked him a lot too. I would call him the second best running back at the Senior Bowl this year. So I like both those guys. And I certainly agree with you on Thomas. I'm really intrigued by him. I've done a couple. I finished my Jaden Daniels evaluation here this weekend and got to see some more of Thomas. And I'm even more intrigued because when I'm watching quarterbacks, I'm going to pick up on the running, the wide receivers, but I wasn't watching his stems and his releases and those kind of things, because I'm watching the quarterback and his footwork, et cetera. So I'm really intrigued to go back and see him. I have a Dunze still over Neighbors. So I think both those LSU guys could be in the top 5, top 6, and maybe he's just being undervalued right now. Thanks, Julian. Good to see you, bud. Whiskey, thank you, sir. Nice to see you. In Jefferson, Minnesota, if he is available for trade, would you trade a first and Jones if KC can't agree to a contract? What would KC do for DT if so? If they trade Chris Jones and don't acquire an onslaught of draft picks, they have to go free agency and they have to beat out teams in the battle for specific free agents, and most notably at the defensive tackle position. That's going to be the hard part. Let me pull the free agents back up and we'll take a quick look. Because off the top of my head, it's the guy that I like and Matabike are the two that come to mind, and I'm just not sure if you can fight off both of their current teams, because I think they're going to want to get re-signed. I think there's going to be bidding wars for him. Chris, obviously here at the market value at the top, you could bring in Reader. I think it might work. He'd be significantly cheaper, but he's not the pass rush specialist. Neither is Stewart. Fletcher Cox is 30, going to be 34. Sheldon's up there over 30. You see why these guys are all, free agents here. Onto the interesting ones. This is my guy, and he's honestly not that much younger. He's 28. He'll be 29 before the Super Bowl next year. But Christian Wilkins would be, if you can't have Chris Jones, would be my number one target. He will be cheaper than Matabike just because of age. I would think Matabike is an option out there. I think you should be listed. Yeah, he's down here. This is just, that's funny. This is just listed by annual average in his current contract. Who else is in here? This is where it gets tricky. As you can see, I'm not coming up with a ton of names that are going to be pass rush first defensive tackles. So you're really fighting for a couple of guys, and those teams are going to come calling for them. So would I trade for Justin Jefferson, trade Chris Jones for Justin Jefferson plus a first round pick? Probably not. I'm going to use Chris Jones to get draft capital back. I'm not going to give up Chris Jones and draft capital for a wide receiver. And as good as Jefferson is, if Kirk Cousins decides somewhere else, he's going to want out. So eventually I could see that coming. But I don't think the team nor I would trade Chris Jones and a 1 for Justin Jefferson. Thanks, Whiskey. Great question. James, what about Morris at right and draft a guy to learn to be swing and backup right? Yeah, that's certainly on the table. That would require Juwan Taylor jumping over to left, which I think is a possibility. A season under his belt, I think he could make that adaptation. I think he'd be okay. We'll see if that comes true. But, James, I like where you're going, and that certainly is what I was talking about before. That could be one of the scenarios. Seth, I wanted to clarify my question from last love. Would you rather have Chris Jones or Christian Wilkins or Chris Jones and Snead? Oof. I'd rather have Chris Jones and Snead. That's what I would do. It's a formula that works. It gives you strength at both ends of the defense, front and back. Christian overloads, and you're relying on your depth to step up in Josh Williams and Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson. And Najee, I think, is going to come back fine, but we don't know that for sure. Every injury is a little bit different. So I don't think we can count on Josh and Jalen to get back up to anywhere near the Snead level. Right now, I don't project that. I expect them to be solid starters, but not anywhere like an all-pro. Dorian, hope you're doing well. Thank you, buddy. Love you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Quick question. If we franchise Chris, would we be able to trade him and then get a first and third? Sorry if this has been asked. It hasn't tonight, but that's exactly it. You can tag him. If he doesn't sign the tag, you can trade him. If he signs the tag, I believe you can still trade him. No, I lied. You can't tag him until he signs the tag. If he was traded, it would be with kind of a pre-negotiation on a new contract for him, and then he would sign the tag. That's how that would come down. But yes, and I do think you would be able to get a first and a third very easily. I would expect a first and a second, and probably a fourth or a fifth, or maybe a first and 2/3, something like that. I expect you're going to get 3 picks in return for Chris Jones no matter what. But great question. Thank you, Dorn. Appreciate you. And thanks for the super chat. Same thing with you, Will, as always. Lawson Jalen Wright from Tennessee. Definitely an option. What speedy backs are you looking for at the combine? He definitely is on that list. I don't have the list in front of me off the top of my bat, but I'm looking for it. It's on my other laptop. So let me just jump real quick And I'll take a look at some of the guys that I am looking at if I can get there. And it is coming up right here. So who am I looking at? It is him. Bucky Irving definitely has speed. Donovan Edwards. I believe he is out of eligibility. I have to double check that. And the guy that I think is running under the radar a lot is Will Shipley from Clemson. I'd take a look at him because I do believe he declared. So I think you're good there. But Wright is certainly at the top of the list. Honestly, the running backs, it's so situational. Unless they break into the clear, I'm really not sure who has the top end speed. That's what the combine is going to give me. In case they just play on an offense that doesn't get it blocked up well, and they've never been able to really show off their speed. So I'm really looking for who that is. And I think that's how Isaiah Pacheco got on this roster the first time. He showed traits, not production, not examples on film. Dorian, thanks again. Appreciate you. I think Keon Coleman's status is depending on his 40 time. And did you say that he's not doing anything at the combine? If so, that's a huge mistake. I did not say that. I think there's a possibility he doesn't do the agility drills, the 3-cone and the short shuttle. I think he might opt out of those. I've heard that twice now. And I'm just not sure if that's accurate or not. No, it's from no one that I absolutely trust. So I'm not spreading it out there. But if he doesn't, I agree. I think if he did nothing at the combine, that'd be a huge mistake. He needs it to make up ground that he's lost this season. Dorian, thank you again. Appreciate you. You're funding this whole thing all by your lonesome, man. I was impressed with Brendan Rice at the Senior Bowl. Yes, Walker dropped too many balls for me. Brendan Rice didn't separate enough for me at the Senior Bowl, but I do think on film, he looks like he's a capable receiver. I think he's a day 3 guy now. I think Walker is as well. I think they could both be developmental guys that you could get cheap late and could bring in and see what they can do and just take some stabs at the wide receiver. I expect 2 draft picks at the wide receiver position in this draft. Thank you, Dorian. And thank you, Scott. I believe you are our last super chat of the night, and then we will all have a good one. I'm just double checking here on Julian's got a couple questions. I'm going to hit those, and I'm stacking everything else. I think we've covered most of the topics. We got that one. That's a great idea. Scott said, so you said last offseason on the live stream that there was a player that the Chiefs were in love with, but you wouldn't reveal it. Who was it? Do you mean in last class? Because I believe it was Paris from Ohio State. If you mean this class, I know for a fact that they were over-scouting Joe Alt last season, hoping that he would be available. Joe Alt is probably going to be the number 1 tackle off the board now. So I think he's out of the question at this point. But that's who I was talking about, Scott. Thanks. And great memory, by the way. Julian's got a couple, and then we'll rally with Battle Cat, and we'll send you guys on your way this evening, and I'm going to go have some dinner. I think we should trade for Derek Brown from Carolina. He's a quality depth on the defense while improving. I mean, possibly, but he doesn't give you that. I don't think he gives you the pass rush that you need, especially if you're talking about in lieu of Chris. So I see where you're coming from, and you might be able to get that cost is worth what you're going to get on the field. Would you trade for Brian Bird from Carolina? I would have liked to last year, but they weren't willing to part with him. I don't think they're going to be willing to part with him again. And if it did, it would cost more than you're going to even get for Chris. So if you tag Chris and they're interested, I would consider swapping. I would give that a shot. But I don't know that I'm giving up draft capital for it, Julian. And the last one you said, what would Thomas from LSU and Lloyd add to the offense? I mean, it would give you that explosive pop. I've seen a couple of plays, Thomas in contested catch situations too, that I like. Dan says that I've probably seen most of it. So maybe I'm overestimating that, but I do like that aspect of his game too. He just looks like a guy that is, again, underutilized because of Neighbors. And I think he has a good bit of upside still. I'd like to see it happen in this offense. Valcat, work something or tag Chris Jones, then trade to the Falcons for Pitts to complement and then take over for 87. I mean, it could work, yeah, but I don't know why the Falcons would do it. The Falcons are likely going to replace their quarterback, and they're going to have London and Pitts They're going to have to add to their offensive line, but they have Bijan. They probably feel they're a quarterback away with some upgraded blocking. I don't think they're going to trade Pitts, but hey, it can't hurt to ask. That's for sure. And I think that would be a nice fit, and certainly would be a guy that you have to feel could grow into replacing Travis eventually. So I hope you guys had a good time. I certainly did. Happy Sunday night. We're going to be back Monday night Q&A all summer long from here till eternity. We will have Monday night Q&A no matter what. Sunday's going to rotate what the content will be. Some will be highlights from previous streams. Some will be live like this. Some will be extra additional draft content, free agent stuff, whatever we have going. We're going to use Sunday until camp as a kind of catch up so that we can give you a variety of content. You guys let me know in the chat, or if you're watching this post live in the comments, what you'd like to see on Sunday nights going forward. And I'll do my best to make that happen. I appreciate you guys for being here, for all of the super chats and contributions. Very much appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. I'm going to go spend it with the family. I hope you guys have fun, and we'll see you back here in just about 23 hours for Monday night Q&A. Have a great one. We'll talk to you then.